Okay.
So yes, I will get the. Okay. So thanks for joining. This is a discussion I was hoping Eric Carney would be here for, but he's still in the air. So I'm going to do my best to kind of cover it for him. Long story short, this is a discussion we've been having for a long time about the fact that every driver has a different set of capabilities that it reports up. One of the most important things that we have in Cinder are volume types, which can take advantage of those capabilities, but mapping the backend's capabilities to volume types is not particularly easy. And I was hoping to get some operators in the room to give feedback on how they would like this to work. But if we can come to a little bit closer agreement as a team as to how we would like to implement it, it would be good. And it sounds like we've got Octavia in the room who are also thinking about this. So if we can talk consistency across projects, that's good. And Eric, is this something that Nova, are you just here because you're curious, or?
A little bit. Driver capability reporting is something that we exactly in those words just did with completely probably a different way than you're talking about it.
Okay, so can you talk about what you guys did?
Yeah, well, first of all, it has to do with scheduling placement as well. So as I remember the last time we talked about this Cinder and placement work and we play together, right?
Yeah.
That's still the case? Not finding a synergy there?
Well, okay, so I sent out a note to Chris Dent and said, do we need to talk about Cinder and placement service synergy? And I think the note that came back from Matt Riedemann was, do you support availability zones, which we do as far in the volume type, and he said we should be good there. Okay. So as far as I know, that's all we need now, but if that's not the case, then we need to be aware of that.
Yeah, so I mean, just real briefly, what we did was we had this driver, and I'm talking about vert drivers here, capabilities dictionary that's inherited from the base class.
Okay.
And it's predictive booleans, and so each driver has their own copy of that and sets them true or false. And then so what we recently did was convert that into a map of placement traits, which we would stuff on the resource provider, so that this would, I mean, it would be a silly thing to just use placement for the sake of that, but that would allow you to do all of the things that you've said over here by query placement instead of by asking the sender for it. Right? Just ask if your volume is a resource provider, you would ask for the traits on it and it would just have there.
Okay.
So, but that would be a silly, I said that would be silly for you to integrate placement just for that purpose, right?
Right.
But that would be the equivalent that when we schedule, you can say, and I need to make sure I land on a host that is capable of X, and that feeds into the placement request and make sure you have the placements back, which is kind of not really relevant for the use case. Or maybe it is.
Yeah, there's a question for you. I think that, at least from the discussion that I have been following, the problem here is that the admins, they know that they have some backends, and the backends might have some capabilities. And when they are creating the types, they'll need to go to the log files and see what the practice report there, right? So we have the our way for my client to get that from placement.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, assuming that you're representing whatever the thing is that we want to talk about, assuming that that thing is being represented in placement, that those capabilities are being represented as traits in one line, you can find out which providers, in your case, which volumes match those criteria.
And then you can create the types.
Sure.
Are all traits booleans?
They're not even booleans. They're either there or they're not. They're either present
or not.
absent.
Right.
Yeah. So in effect, booleans. Yes.
Behavior. Yeah.
my favorite tool is a hammer, so I'm trying to make all of your problems look like a nail.
Which one of the things that we were hopefully trying to improve here is not having everything present or not present. But it doesn't mean.
Yeah, being able to have an enum or whatever for values.
Yeah.
Volume type enum. Yeah.
So there was an old spec that I initiated with my HPT back in the Kilo release, where we actually talked about changing, creating a new API and changing the drivers to allow them to respond, to reply from the get volume stats, providing a list of keys and values and,
Yep.
and their types, and if some have a possible subset of list of enums that are available or not. And this was actually accepted. That, I don't know what happened to it, if we actually implemented part of that or not, but this plays right into what I think we're trying to do here.
Did we talk about that in Austin? And then we got grappled by other people. Yes.
So how does this relate to, say, the, I don't know if anyone else uses this, but I heavily leverage init vendor properties. Because the reason I leverage that is because the result of that actually shows up in driver get capabilities. It gives you a nice big output of the things that, like the volume type things that are supported for the driver.
Yeah.
What do you do?
So there's this method in vendor properties where if you fill it out with stuff, this isn't merged upstream, but it's one of my goals.
I'm like, why did I not know about that? I don't know that this is.
So
my method is there, but you're just adding.
Yeah, this is my implementation in the driver of something that's already there. Is in vendor properties.
I wasn't even aware of that.
Yeah. So, and it gets called when the driver is initialized, there's this thing called set property, and it takes information like the property, the name of it, description and stuff, and all of that information is put in the get capabilities output. So, I mean, I've been leveraging this for like 3 years now.
It's probably so much of what the spec was talking about, because the other part of the spec was they wanted to add some new hooks at Horizon, so that way it allows them to pre-populate some of the keys and values for when you actually construct a volume type.
Yeah.
If you have it associated to the back end, it knows what keys are available.
So it may not actually be the init vendor properties that is the part that matters. I think it's the set property function.
Okay.
So you call set property with each of the things that each of the capabilities within the driver. I don't think it affects anything in terms of how the get volume stats thing reports. It's just strictly for get capabilities output. At least as far as I can tell. My SEs love it, so.
Because I mean, the ultimate goal is have a command in the client that we can run that shows us capabilities for the backends that we have attached, and be able to go into Horizon and have a nice little drop down. Say I'm creating volume type and I want to I know what capabilities are there and I want to select them and get them to work.
That's exactly what we had in place. So we had all the patches on it.
So set property is defined in Cinder volume driver. It's been there for a while.
Validation built into it as well, so we detect any value. We would validate against the driver. So, for example, if you say, I want to enable a certain tool, this is the name that I want to enable, it actually echoes and validate on the back end that tool exists.
Okay. Is that the reviews that you have linked
Yeah,
here?
that's some of them.
Such low numbers.
Anyway,
Yeah. So
we should review that along with whatever Aaron's proposing to make sure that because I think we're all trying to solve the same problem.
Okay.
That's good for the gas stats.
I don't know where else it might be used, but it's
Holding access, holding user access.
Cinder get capabilities. Like there's a get capabilities.
And right now, because no one's implementing it, it just returns a standard set of capabilities.
Yeah.
And that's been the problem, is that it doesn't actually say what the
That's the
storage
problem.
you're using.
But like this is
capable of.
really well documented in Cinder Volume Driver. That's why I implemented it. Is I just happened to be reading Cinder Volume Driver and saw that. And I was like, hey, this is great.
That was what Griffith looked at one of the times we were looking at this and went, oh, this is broken, it doesn't even show anything. And it's because the drivers haven't properly implemented it.
Apparently, according to that commit that I added to the it looks like the framework's all in place, and we just need drivers to actually say what they support. And it's not in the documented driver interface, so.
Well, I think that the reason drivers aren't implementing it either is because it is a underscore method. So it's like private.
It's a private method.
Private, but nothing else uses it, and then I've not seen any problems with just overriding it.
So why don't we graduate it to a non-underscore method then?
And the thing is that it's not like init vendor properties returns an empty dictionary in Cinder Volume Driver and nothing else uses it. So there's no reason not to override it.
Yeah.
There's a public init capabilities call in Cinder Volume Driver, but then it looks like each driver would override init vendor properties that then gets pulled into that.
Mm-hmm. So rather than implementing their own init capabilities, they just override this one thing, which is just populate the properties and then all the rest is handled.
I guess one thing we can do is file bugs against every driver to implement this.
Change the default and fix it.
Well, I would also just have it do a public method.
Yeah, it needs to be a public.
A public method that's part of the defined interface.
Yeah.
Document.
Oh yeah. Well, it's really well documented.
No, in the code. But
Oh yeah,
the
yeah.
drivers are developer.
I don't trust any documentation that's not actually in the driver. Sure.
So for all the drivers out there that are not care fed, do we just say, well, sorry, you're lost, you don't have nice capabilities reporting?
If it's only affecting the user experience and not actually affecting functionality, I would say it's up to them to implement it.
Yeah, we should raise this during the PTG as one of the things that driver maintainers should go look at.
I just like it because I don't have to tell users every single volume type thing that I support. Instead, I just put it in here and I write get capabilities. Although the get capabilities output is kind of gross if you have a lot of information in there, but it's still, like if you pipe it to a document and actually look at it, it's easier.
Okay. Well, I mean, ugly output can be fixed.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay. And then we should probably make sure to do some sort of email to the mailing list to talk about, or to make vendors aware, the usual spamming, so that if people come back and go, we didn't know, we can be like, we did due diligence.
I'm only partially joking. I wonder if the defaults do something like this driver has unknown capabilities, like an unknown capabilities capability.
Well, so there's an init standard capabilities, and so every driver has the standard ones. And so you're just overriding the init vendor properties, which is in addition to the standard ones.
But it's kind of bad because it does show, like, one of the standard capabilities is thin provisioning. I think we still have some storage backends that don't do thin provisioning. So maybe we should also review that, or replication.
Yeah, and anything that's vendor property is their prefix one. So like mine's df.
does this sound to outdated in comparison?
Use case a lot.
Why, thank you.
So I don't know so the Boolean being supported or not for insurers acceptable for us. Custom. So I think at this point, I just like to track you guys and try to have a similar API experience.
Okay. Sounds good. Knowing it's half the battle.
Yeah. Guess we could say we collaborate.
Collaboration is also good. So is this an easier discussion?
Yeah, it kind of seems like it. So I guess what do we need to do about Eric's spec? It's not really a spec. It's just we get it, contents of our pretty much ideas.
Yeah.
We need to talk about exactly what this basically.
Added a comment in there to point to the commit that had that at least.
Problem two, we just talked about solving, right? So we get driver's tax, that was just mechanisms after we upgraded to color.
Yeah.
Maybe that took 1, 2, and 3, providing national values. That's also going to be the driver's license anyways, you got to specify what that would be. If you look at the old review that I had from Julie from the HP team, the very first one that I had opened, this is actually approved. I think this is what kind of what the genesis of this method that was actually. You scroll down a little bit, you can show what was that was for JSON for all themselves, which looks was schedules right there. Those are the extra specs right there. So that is it, 3 properties basically, or 2 properties, and that was the name, so the kind of is, the values that are acceptable for it. That's an idea because Horizon can see that, or some client can see that directly from create line
So these are the different possible values,
yeah.
and this is the
That's the actual name. That has a description, so you can do that sort of know what you have to say.
yeah. That'd be good.
How does that look compared to what you reported?
Sorry, what?
We were just describing, so this is the spec that was actually approved back in 2014, Kilo, for reporting the extra specs and the possible. So this one here shows 2 extra specs. One is solar, the other one is staff CDG, and it kind of gives you a little bit of detailed information about each one, like the type and the possible values.
Yeah, so
Even
that
description.
is pretty similar to what the set property function does.
Okay.
So if you go into Cinder Volume Driver and you, if you go to vendor properties as examples in there,
Okay.
in the doc string, and you set property on the properties dictionary, and you have like vendor prefix : then the specific property, the title of the property, the description of the property, and then the type of the property.
Okay.
So it's very similar to that. It's missing things like the enum value, although I think that might be part of the type. Oh yeah, it does. It allows enums, so you can specify an enum keyword and that kind of thing. So I think it's very close to.
So this is probably what that was executed against.
Yeah, I betcha. I mean, if we do a blame on it, it looks like it's been here since July 2015.
Yeah, that sounds right. Okay. So it seems like we have the mechanism in place.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so that's good. Okay. So in a perfect world, we get this implementing on the center side. What do we need to do to get it then in the horizon? Just trying to think further down the road. Since we're closer to having it for cinder than we realized, do we have anyone, do you know anybody interested in doing the programming for it on the horizon side?
So for now, we've got new contributor who's interested in implementing some cinder-specific features for Horizon. So we finished generic volume groups and what's let me open.
I think there was a patch way back when that Julie wrote for Horizon that would consume some of the stuff, and it had some of the drop down. I'll find. I'll see if I can find it.
Oh. Yes, we definitely can do it in Horizon, but I'm not sure if it's only admin UI or not. Because it will be based on how Cinder decided to do it.
It would
But
be admin only because only admins can create volume types.
yes.
Oh yeah, I found it. One type action specs widget for Horizon. I'll put it in.
Okay.
This is back in 2014. Yeah, we even had support for doing validation. So someone fills out line type and all the other specs. Query the driver and say, hey, because that's the other part. The other problem with volume types is that since you can set anything when you want, anything that you want, you don't know that it's invalid until you actually try and create a volume with that volume type, and it fails, and then you're like, well, why did it fail? And you have to look deep inside the bowels of the log to find out, well, this key's not valid. That was the trying to use.
Okay.
But that also requires a lot of driver effort to implement the functions, doing the validation, spec reviews were just putting on 20 was consider API changes that need to be made. I mean, a call to do the validation against the prior objective setting. Well, I think the first step is to get them to implement this function that we already have in place. And then a follow-up to all that would be to implement the validation interface, the Cinder API, and then the log manager, and then all the drivers.
But how reliable will this validation API will be, because some driver will not implement it.
It's exactly what we have today, basically. It's free-form text. So, I think the default was to just return true if they didn't implement the function. It's no worse off than it is today.
Yeah.
What did you just say, Sean?
Oh, unrelated.
Oh, okay. Didn't want to pop up one of your naughty reviews again on the screen.
So would it be possible that we return the values like a JSON schema, and use the schema validation for the extra specs, and then we only have to do one change. We have to I mean, make the implementation of validation easy, assuming that it was easy to write.
Yeah, I think what we had was the schema validation already, but what we wanted to do was make sure that the value that the input was actually valid against the back end. That kind of stuff, if you wanted to, yeah.
Oh, this will require to add some documentation for operators. So we need to be sure that the operator should add backend first and then add new extra specs. Because if operator adds extra specs first before adding new backend, it will fail.
Right.
Okay, well, this was not contentious, which is good. And it sounds like we have more of these pieces in place than we realized. Where were you before that? I told you, you can't go away.
Yeah, this really does look exactly like what we were talking about.
We tried hard to do this a long time ago. And this one is specifically I was really checking.
Well, you can be vindicated. Is there anything else around capabilities we want to discuss while we're here?
Was there a need to report that stuff up to the placement?
Yeah, so maybe we take a minute here to be a nail for Eric.
As long as you guys are not getting that.
That's what summits are for, right?
Sean and I were kind of just chatting a little bit about that. There's opportunities there, especially if you're still playing in an OS space, to be able to make sure that the right volumes end up on the right VMs, and all of that stuff is pre-filtered, filtered as early as possible, so we don't end up with late fails, or worse, late not quite fails that just don't work.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's kind of the synergy that I see. But I guess that discussed. Why was it not? Why was that? That's all I remember from that conversation was the conclusion, not the substance of the discussion.
Well, I think we also went into it with a different mindset. We were more looking at what can placement do for us rather than what can we do for placement. Because that was when we were wanting to use your database code for our distributed blocking. And then we never really got onto what do we need to give you to make us useful to your environment. So what so right now the way I understand it with placement is somebody will say I need traits X, Y, Z for a compute node. And right now you would be limited to ephemeral storage, right? You could use like a set backend or something because you don't, at least in multi-zone environments, because you don't know if our storage is there.
Because the storage is not represented in placement, right? All of that stuff has to be kind of done in some other app.
Okay.
So if the storage were represented in placement, we just tack on that extra set of queries on the placement query, and then post the list of potential host/volume combinations, like that will all come back at once in one result. And then when we do the allocation, that allocation is done atomically, so that the compute resources and volume resources and the device resources and all that stuff happens atomically, and there's no racing. Obviously, that has benefits for avoiding racing issues.
Right. Well, it has benefits for the end user that wants to use placement with volumes as well.
Yes.
But it will work only for persistent volumes, not for ephemeral.
So right now, if we were required, I don't think we are, but we have at least the framework in place. If you wanted to record traits for your ephemeral storage, like this is an SSD.
Cinder does not know anything about ephemeral storage. Even in case of Ceph, usually ephemeral storage has open pool. It's the same class, could be the same Ceph cluster, but open different pools for Nova ephemeral storage, for Cinder storages. And Cinder can't provide anything about ephemeral storage.
Yeah, so somebody's going to have to know which is which and report out appropriately. For the ephemeral storage that Nova knows about, it owns reporting the inventory, basically number of gigabytes of disk, right? Reporting that up to placement. Today, as part of the inventory of the compute node. Okay? We don't do the same thing for volume storage. We could.
We don't do.
But we could do that, in which case, the way I would see it positioned is that the volume would be a resource provider reported to placement by Cinder, not by Nova. And that would be a sharing provider, right? Because you can attach a given volume to any number of hosts, right? So that would be a sharing provider, and then you circle an aggregate around a placement aggregate, not a host aggregate. You circle a placement aggregate around all of the computes and all of the volumes that are able to be connected to each other. And then when I ask for my resources, I say, give me disk, give me CPU, right? And if I've said that I want my disk to be volume, then you can volume concentrate or by some whatever it is, then Nova goes out and queries placement and says, give me all the combinations of hosts plus volumes that can satisfy this request. And it comes back with all those permutations, and then we pick one and do that allocation. And then somewhere down the chain, the same code that we run today that says, oh, by the way, go ahead and give me that disk. Right? Although I think that part's actually done beforehand today, right? Like I have to go and get my disk before my volume beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then attach it. Once I already have it, then I attach it to my Nova instance.
Unless it's volume, unless it's for backing your file system, then you guys do it automatically.
Okay.
The trick here, I think, is if we don't put a volume type in there that's tied to a specific backend, you're not guaranteed to get what you ask for. Because if I don't specify a volume type, it's going to go on some scheduler decided backend, which may not be the place where you thought it was going to end up.
Right. So I mean, we have to put all the pieces together. It's going to be Cinder's responsibility when it reports the volume placement of the resource provider to not only assign its inventory, how big it is, right, how much capacity it has, but also to put any traits on it that would restrict in whatever ways these volume types are necessary to restrict. When you go and ask for it from the orchestration side, whether it be directly from Nova or from your orchestrator or whatever, that would somehow have to know when applicable to put that trait on that request, so that you're limited to the volume types you can handle. And if you don't do that, as you say, you get just whatever back, and it might not work. It's the same problem today.
I think the issue is today is there's nothing in Cinder that requires you to create a volume type tied to a specific backend. There's no guarantee that you will have one of those.
Yeah, I mean, this would kind of put that control in the hands of Cinder to be able to enforce that, make sure that happens. Who is it that knows what the volume type is or what the capabilities are?
Well,
does Cinder know, or does the operator know?
So
Cinder knows, the scheduler knows what's available per backend, but since there's no direct tie, or guaranteed no direct tie between the volume type and that backend, that's why.
Type could just say, I need iSCSI, and that's it. And you could have 10 different iSCSI capable storage devices, and we'll just pick which one.
So why is that a problem?
Just if you want to be very specific about, we need Nova Compute and the Cinder volume, maybe even the same availability zone. If the schedule doesn't know about availability zone, it just knows you need iSCSI based on that volume type.
It does know about.
So I think a simple example is you have two backends, one that has 5 gigs left, the other one has 100, and there's no volume types associated with either of those two backends. There's no guarantee that the request isn't going to go to that smaller available because you're only asking for 1 gig.
Why is that a problem?
I guess it's not a problem. It just depends on how you want it to
So I mean,
work.
my point is that the power is there, and that if you need more precision, you can ask for more precision and get it. And if you don't need the precision, then you shouldn't be asking for it anyway, and whatever you get should be fine. Right? If whatever you're getting isn't fine, then it's because you didn't specify a precise enough request, not because the framework wasn't capable.
I think it's the issue isn't Cinder not giving the precision, it's Cinder not having the details that when a request comes in, you know about.
To
Placement will have all the details it needs to guarantee the right placement.
Right. But I mean, it sounds like that's a problem that you're trying to solve with whatever mechanism you're trying to solve it with, right?
If we really don't have any way to accept a specific placement, if you will, within the provisionary request other than a volume type right now. If you're actually trying to place it on a specific backend, that is the only way we can do it today.
But if
That's not a problem, I don't know. But
if someone really cares, then they could conceivably just put the volume back and name in the volume type.
And when if it's in placement, then you also, it's not necessarily just in the hands of Cinder. You could have your operator can decorate it with whatever traits they want, and then specify those same traits in their flavor or whatever, and show it as part of the request. So there's flexibility there.
yeah, I guess if they care that much, then they would create a volume type associated with that backend, and then
Volume type or any other arbitrary
all the other
trait.
attributes.
So, is the answer that we need to make the information that goes to our scheduler and the volume types
Available to the
to the placement API?
Because we have all of that data there. We know how much space is available on the back end, what types they support, how many pools are available. It's
Yeah, I mean,
a ton of.
all of that. I mean, in 2 sentences, sure, it deals with the details, right? But
Yeah.
I see that. That makes sense to me. I mean, I think that it could be optimized.
Okay.
And help both sides, help users.
I think we'd have to, if we do it, we'd have to identify at least 1 or 2 use cases or scenarios where we can make sure that whatever data we're putting into placement is actually going to enable something that's
That doesn't exist today. It almost sounds like a bypassing of our scheduler to an extent.
or sneak peek to the scheduler.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we talked broke down before was that there was that, and then there's also capacity available does not play well with the language. you can't be going and updating placements every, third or second.
No.
Real capacity. You just have to kind of put it in overcommit and then cross your fingers.
So you guys suggesting that the Cinder, the scheduler would keep the database, keep the records with the information, and also send that to placement, so you have that in two places.
But not the regular stats update, because that was the issue before. Is placement isn't for temporal information that changes constantly. So if we're updating stats every 60 seconds, we don't want to be pushing out everything into placement every 60 seconds.
Yeah.
But some base, this is the environment. Your availability zones, your available backends. Just not at this moment, this backend has this much capacity. That's where it's probably where the models are different.
But I think some of the other information, like the capabilities of what kind of volumes this backend can provide, pools, whether it can be ISCAs in your fiber channel or whether it's SSDs or not, if we have the ability for, I think some of the drivers do report some of that stuff out, but.
Does it support encryption, Nate, or backend data at rest encryption doesn't support multi-attach?
Does it, yeah, multi-attach, multi-path. I think that would be more useful information.
Yeah.
We've already got an agenda for that doesn't include this, but that's no list.
When would be a good time to meet with?
So Saturday would be the best time to meet with placements.
Okay.
That works.
What time do you leave, Sean?
Sometime Saturday afternoon. I have to figure out what we got here.
So if we could get some time Saturday morning, maybe?
Yeah. Yeah, so it looks like Saturday morning is ironic, maybe with our that. It's the topic of what else can places do as well.
Okay. So come join you guys Saturday morning.
Well, join the guys on probably will be passing. But
Okay.
But Chris will get with me. But
Cool. All right. We're over time on that one, which was interesting. Filter imported, change reporting. Thanks for the input, Eric.